Welcome back. You're listening to the panel discussion, The Pathway to Digital Transformation in Government, sponsored by Juniper Networks on federalnewsradio.com and 1500 AM. I'm your host, Jason Miller. Our guests today are Pam Dyson, the Security and Exchange Commission's Chief Information Officer, Tim Benjen, the IT Development Director for Navy Reserve Forces Command, and David Shive, the Chief Information Officer for the General Services Administration. We were just ending the conversation at the last segment around automation, and we're going to jump into security in a second. But Pam, I know you wanted to jump in about automation, and that plays right into the security conversation.
So one of the ways that automation has really advanced us at the SEC is with our testing suites. So, we've been able to automate our development environments. It has positioned us to be more agile in the way that we deliver solutions, develop software. In addition to that, we're leveraging the cloud and automation to self-provision development environments, to spin up environments with the resources that you need when you need them, to turn them back down. So we've moved from an on-prem solution for that to a cloud-based solution, and that has been very effective in us being able to deliver things much sooner. We can, kind of filter out what issues we're going to have much sooner. We can address requirements, kind of on demand because the way we've automated these environments. So.
And the fact is that when you automate the environments, for instance, we have to test this out, or that works. We talked about this a little bit with the patching. You can also then test that patch much more quickly. Talk a little bit about automation cyber.
Long before we roll that out into the environment. So again, our tests and our development environments, we've seen the biggest gains with automation in that space, even with some of the core work streams for the divisions, because that's the layer where we start, and the lower environments of the life cycle is where we've seen a lot of progress made with automation.
And Dave, you brought the cybersecurity up piece last segment as well. What differences are you seeing? What benefits as you automate your cybersecurity? Or is it quicker? Is it better? Is it cheaper? Is it faster? Is it all of the above?
Yeah, so certainly better and faster. Don't know if cheaper is the right answer. There's a pretty steep trajectory of cybersecurity spend, and what that does is even that out a little bit because you become more efficient. So you're turning the comment back to customer-centered design and user experience-centered focus on how we deliver technologies. It's good to spend a fair amount of time to reduce clicks and optimize business. But really our customers, if you're going to be truly customer-centered design, the number one thing for them is cybersecurity. It doesn't matter how efficient a application is if it efficiently exposes data to people who shouldn't have it, or efficiently exposes user credentials out to the world in a way it's not meant to. So we pour a massive amount of time into cybersecurity because that's kind of the preeminent customer-centered design focus for us.
But Tim, jump in here for a second, because what Dave's just saying, user-centered design, the most important is cybersecurity. You work with, we're going to blame the millennials on this, so you'll forgive me by going down this path. They don't want cybersecurity. They want it when they want it, right? So how do you find that balance?
They want it when they want it, and they want it now. And they want it to work, and they want it to work quick. They don't want to sit there and wait for a spinning wheel for even 10, 15 seconds. They want it to be instantaneous because that's what they're used to. Everything else is instantaneous. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we're working to. And the cloud is helping us with that because it is assuming a lot of those security risks for us. We don't have to manage them. Some of our cybersecurity methods may be antiquated. The cloud has all the newest, latest, greatest stuff. We're finding that out now. There's better insight. They have very good analytic security tools in the cloud where you can find out exactly what's going on, and you can really drill down into any threats that you might see in the cloud, and we find that very useful. A lot of our accreditation processes are being modernized to take into account cloud services. Right now, some of the older accreditation processes don't take that into account at all. So how do you accredit something that didn't exist when the process was put in place? So we're modernizing that. We're moving to the NIST risk management framework, and it's working very well for us. And we believe our systems are more secure now as we move to the cloud than they were when we were trying to secure them ourselves.
Dave, Tim said your favorite word, accreditation. You're on the JAB, the Joint Authorization Board, when it comes to FedRAMP.
Right.
Now, I don't want to go down too much of that path, but that piece that Tim's talking about is also a piece that's very important for digital transformation, is trust in the cloud.
Right.
This idea that eventually, I know the FedRAMP is moving toward continuous monitoring or continuous diagnosis mitigation, whatever term we're using today.
Right.
Just give me what's the latest with that so Pam, when she comes and gets her cloud from somebody, she feels good about it.
Right. So accrediting systems for federal use is an important part of what we do. And it really doesn't matter if it's a cloud thing or it's an on-prem thing. You have to do the accreditation. You have to do the testing to make sure that you're not exposing data and that it has the right controls in place to effectively operate. That's a large body of work. And so we've been looking for ways to streamline that. We have what we call Agile ATOs now, where we get the developers, the security people, and the accreditation people together in the same room and work accreditation in real time on systems. We have limited scope ATOs, where we will take a look at low-risk systems, cloud-based systems that aren't dealing with heavy-duty PII, and saying, do we need to put the same accreditation overlay on that we do on, say, a core financial system or an authentication system? The answer is obviously and intuitively no, we don't. So we're modifying the accreditation process to be more tailored in line with the actual risk presented by said system, whether it's cloud-based or on-prem. So it's an important body of work. I don't think accreditation will end, but we're finding some very creative ways to speed up the process.
I know. I think that I hear the vendors all sigh when you said it won't end. I don't know if that was me or if you heard that too. Pam, I want to jump over to data for a second, because I think the other piece of this, and Tim brought this up, is the data piece. You guys are a big data agency.
Absolutely.
We've talked about this. I think a story I wrote some about a lifeboat of data.
Uh-huh.
Let's talk a little bit about the data analytics piece and how that plays into your decisions around digital transformation.
So a lot of our modernization over the last 2 or 3 years have been positioned us to build these data analytics platforms. So we have a lot of data collection systems. We continue to collect data. We have huge data sets coming in as a result of rulemaking. We have consolidated audit trail coming in, import, mutual fund reporting, and those types of things. The cloud is critical for us in this space, because the data sets are the largest the agency has ever ingested, and there's a lot of sensitivity around them. And as Tim said, we feel very comfortable with the security of the cloud, and so we're going to continue to leverage that technology. But one of the areas that we don't talk about as much is data collection for internal use and diagnostics. So we talked about security and automating a lot of the tools. The diagnostics that come out of those tools also allows us to run analytics on, to put us in a more proactive space. We'd like to get to the point where we're doing a lot of predictive analytics around our environment, the security of the environment, the security of the data repositories, and those types of things. So we're using data and data analytics not just for our mission critical work streams, but also for internal information, so that we can improve upon the posture of the agency as a whole.
Is it also helping you make decisions about how to address customer needs or citizen requirements?
Absolutely. It's, again, with tighter budgets and leaner staffing, there's a lot of decision making around where you put those resources. And so this type of data is allowing us to do just that. What are the needs of the citizen? Where are we going to get the highest impact based on the data that we're seeing and we're able to run analytics on? Absolutely.
Now, Tim, you guys also are working on a big data challenge too. Talk a little bit about your efforts.
Sure, we have a Navy Reserve data warehouse that houses very reserve-centric information, and our headquarters staff primarily, but also our regional command staffs, they use it to perform analytics. How are we doing kind of things in the Navy Reserve, and how do we want to plan for the future? We want to get to the part where we can do predictive analytics with it, and we're just concluding a several-month-long consultation with a vendor to help us modernize it, make it what the users need. If you provide data but the user doesn't need it or doesn't know what it is, it's not going to do any good. So we kind of found ourselves in that situation a few years ago. So we've modernized it, we've made it more relevant, and since I'm the mobile guy, I want to make it mobile friendly. I want to make what we're calling analytics on the go. I want leadership to be able to pull up their phone and look at some data and make a decision right then and there, no matter where they're at. They could be at the dinner, but they can make a decision because we provided the information they need, where they need it, when they need it. So,
From a timing standpoint, you talk about the modernization of this data warehouse. It just seems in the beginning stages, correct?
it is, and so we're upgrading our current legacy hardware and software to do the things we want to do with it. Once we've done that, we're going to actually look at moving it to the cloud as well. But that's going to be, out of all of our transition to the cloud, that's probably going to be the tail end of it, because and that's one of our most sensitive systems. So.
And I think that's probably the challenge. I know DoD just awarded the Mill Cloud 2.0, so maybe that's a future discussion that we can have around that. Dave, let me turn to you. GSA obviously is less of a big data than, let's say, SEC, but the data that you guys do collect, acquisition data, the Federal Acquisition Service or Public Building Service, that's really important data to help you make decisions and transform how you deliver services. Talk about your data efforts.
Absolutely. So almost 2 years ago now, we started a program. We call it Data to Decisions. It's a ecosystem of technical capability, organizational change management, and training that allows us to exploit that data asset as a whole. It's actually one of our most valuable data assets. You know, there's a few Internets of Things that have been around for a long time. The National Weather Service has had an Internet of Things collecting weather data from satellites and buoys and stuff since the beginning of time. Public Building Service is a perfect example. We have sensors everywhere measuring the movement of doors as people come in and out of the building, or the movement of elevators that move along, or measuring light and turning lights on and off as people enter and move out of rooms. Doing something with the data that comes off of that massive Internet of Things, which is 3.2 million data points per day for GSA, you can actually do some things. You can predict when heating and cooling systems are about to fail and do something about it and do preventative maintenance long before it becomes a $1 million replacement. You can do things like measure the amount of sun coming in the side of a building and draw down the shades by putting electric shades on to cool that side of the building at a fraction of the cost rather than just cranking up HC.
And if you've ever been in a room and that happens, it's the weirdest thing. I was doing an interview with someone at GSA, and all of a sudden the shades started to come down.
Yep.
And I kind of looked at the press person, like, it's okay.
Yeah.
But you're right, 3.2 million data points. I mean, is this, so the data to decision, is that being used at all levels of GSA right now?
It is, and you know what, when you consolidate data and aggregate data, you can start to know some things. If you have public building data and acquisition data and you merge those two things together, you can know about the buying habits that are necessary to support buildings, and executives can make smarter decisions. In this ecosystem that we've built up, we've found out there's a lot of really smart data-centered people within GSA that maybe were tied with business units and stuff. We're able to tie them to the systems and then push them up right next to the decision makers, so we can make decisions based on data that's hours old rather than days and weeks old. So.
Pam, are you guys getting there to make that predictiveness of how to address challenges? So I'll give you an example that comes to mind. There's going to be an IPO, big filing, a 10K. We mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
You know that many times. You know when that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Does data tell you, for instance, oh, we better turn the cloud up 3 notches? Is a bad example.
And you know, and we built contingencies in place so that we can scale up during high volume peak filing periods. But yeah, a lot of the analytics, certainly just the request for certain information, the searches that the public do across the EDGAR universe of filings also give us an indication of where areas of interest are and where we should be putting interest as well. But yeah, a lot of that is built into our our service delivery model to ensure that we can scale up during those high peak areas and high demand areas. Absolutely.
This has been a fascinating conversation. We're just about out of time. So let's look to the future. If we have this conversation again in a year or two from now, where are we going to be? I think we started with Pam from the beginning, so we'll start with Dave, and Pam, you'll get the last word. Dave.
Okay. So even though we've had the customer and the citizen at the focus of our design for a long time, we're going to double down on that. Instead of saying, well, what's going to be the impact on customer, we're inviting the customer into the discussion and saying, is this going to be useful for you? And we're allowing that to modify how we deliver stuff. Another thing that we're starting to look at is what we call disposable tech. Because of the rapid pace of change in technology and the business that sits on top of that technology, we're finding that there's value, and the cost of delivering technology has become so low that the delivery of that technology has become a commodity in and of itself. So if you need to stand up an application that has a lifespan of 30 days or 90 days, that's okay, because it's become so cheap to do that. You use it for that discrete amount of time and then turn it off and move on to the next thing.
I like that, disposable tech. Tim, tell me where we're going.
I would like to see, as far as the Navy Reserve is concerned, our sailors be able to do all of their work without having to go into a drilling unit to get on the computer. I mean, there's obviously things that we do inherently to the Navy that they have to be on site to do, but any kind of admin work, any kind of order processing, any kind of travel, any kind of training, do it from anywhere, anytime, any device. That's our tagline for mobility: anywhere, anytime, any device. We really need to meet that. I would like to see, I don't know if it can happen within the next year or two, I would like to see an alternate authentication method. We have a pretty legacy system right now for authenticating. It's fairly secure, but there's better stuff out there. I'd like to see us transition to maybe some biometrics or things like that. When I log into my bank app, I just got to use my thumb, and there's all my information. I mean, there's alternate methods out there that we want to explore. I'd like to see us start using some of those.
Excellent. And Pam, give us the last word.
Anywhere, anytime, more mobile. Certainly we want to customize our solutions so that they're more investor and public centric, where users can come in and customize their searches, customize the services that they use at the SEC. And certainly we want to be far more advanced in the security space with our continuous monitoring program and how we're managing our perimeter, to ensure that we're doing everything we can to keep the data repositories at the SEC as safe as possible.
All right, excellent conversation. Thank you all very much. Unfortunately, though, we are out of time. You've been listening to the panel discussion, The Path to Digital Transformation in Government, sponsored by Juniper Networks on federalnewsradio.com and 1500 AM. I've been your host for today. I'd like to thank my guests for their time, their insights. Pam Dyson, the Chief Information Officer of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Tim Benjen, the IT Development Director for the Navy Reserve Forces Command, and David Shive, the Chief Information Officer for the General Services Administration. For more on this discussion, visit federalnewsradio.com and search Juniper. On behalf of Federal News Radio, thank you for joining us. A link to the archive session will be sent to you shortly. If you requested a training certificate, you will also receive an email with download instructions after the webinar. This concludes our discussion. Thank you.